24-hour equal symmetrical time zones, right?
Right.
Okay. So when we come over here and we look at the actual time zone map, let's take a look at it. So again, to make the flat Earth a globe, you would have to stretch out the north and then compress the south, right? All right, so you see this section right here where it says, okay, first of all, let's start at the bottom. You see how it's labeled? These are parallel longitudinal sections, right? So you have 11, 12, 13 hours, 14 hours, all the way up to 24. Then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right?
I see, yeah.
So this would be like the ideal mapping of the globe, right? Like these parallel lines would be longitudinal zones that would give you the 24 1-hour time zones.
Yeah, so 24 in the north and 24 in the south.
Right. So if you look at this right here, if we come up, we're at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. If we go up from 6, we see that this time zone right here starts in 6, right? And then it goes over into 5 and it goes over into 4. So what's happening here is as we go further west, we're stretching this time zone out over 3 different longitudinal zones. We're doing the same thing for this 4-hour little pink section. Okay?
Yeah, because they want to keep the provinces in the same time zone in Canada.
But that's a very exciting story. So then as we keep going over here, we end up getting this dateline discrepancy where we have 24 hours, which means if it's midnight here, then it's 3 a.m. here, right?
Right.
So this is just one longitudinal zone. It should be the same time on the globe, but it's a 3-hour difference. All right, as we move over further west, you see that we have 21 hours and then we have 19 hours. So we're missing hour number 20. We come over here, we go 19 to 17, so we're missing 18, right?
Right.
Okay. Now we come down a little bit and you see we added the 18 right here. We added the 20 up here. So right around this area, we're starting to add in the missing times, right?
Yep.
And you see how this is starting to line up with the actual 6 hours down here. It's starting to line up right around this area. Everything's lining up.
Yep.
Okay. I can feel that you know what's about to happen. So,
I don't.
okay. Well, for starters, this area right here is super sketchy, right? Because this is where they fit in 3 hours that don't belong there. Now, to actually map, it would look like this, right? It'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. Conveniently enough, it looks like this, where there's this huge 3-hour discrepancy within one longitudinal zone. Okay. So we're going to.
Those are just political boundaries. Who cares?
So it's just based on different people's, different like cities or more so like countries, personal preference of time, right?
Right. Canada wants to stay. I mean, all of Alaska wants to stay on the same day as Canada, and all of Russia wants to stay on the same day.
So it's just random.
Well, they draw the date line between those two countries.
Yeah.
It's not random. There's a purpose.
Each country gets to just arbitrarily choose out of their own personal preference.
Right.
Why not? Why is that such a big deal?
Can you shut up, dude? Okay. So as we continue, what we find for starters right here, it's very interesting that when I went to 24/7 flight radar, no flights go right here. And
no cities right there.
And no ships go right there. So if you were to try to, pull some wizardry with distances, you could have pulled it off right here because nothing goes there. In fact, I actually videotaped me watching a playback of the flights. A plane starts going up this way, and then it just stops and it disappears.
Yeah, so you just click on that flight and see, after it lands, you can see the full flight path.
That's what's up. So just put all that in your pocket. And like no one travels across here, conveniently enough. Just a coincidence. So they stretched it out west, missing 3 hours here, hide hours over here. Okay. Now,
so I would think that cargo planes from Japan or China to Anchorage, Alaska would go in that area.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you fly all the way down here south over, this doesn't help us. We need this area specifically right here. But
yeah, I don't think you're going to find any commercial flights that go there.
So that's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence.
No, it's just that those are really unpopulated places with snow and polar bears and
Yeah, but I mean, it's just a
But
coincidence that that's the area that we have the 3-hour discrepancy. So that's
no,
inconvenient.
it's not a coincidence. It's because there's so few people there that they can make these big time change things.
That's a
Really
non
slow it down.
sequitur. Though we're talking about how if you wanted to try to stretch out the flat Earth into a globe, you would have to make it wider and create more area. Where they actually did this with time zones, the biggest difference that reaches the date line, where there's a 3-hour difference, that very area, no one can really verify distance. No one goes there. Okay, just a coincidence. Okay, now we're going to move forward here. Actually, when we look at the older flat Earth maps, the time zones work perfect, and they actually have this area closer together. Just like this ancient map has it closer together. But then we look at Gleason's map, who had to patent it with the longitude and latitude system of the globe coordinates, and now we start getting messed up. And this is why it says publicly available and it was allowed to be patented. But the old maps show it being closer. But unfortunately, we can't verify anything there, just conveniently. Okay, here's where it starts to get really interesting, though. We're going to come forward here. So as we add these up here, we find out that in this most northern portion, we have 19 time zones. So we've subtracted 5. Okay, so we're missing
Yeah, you
3 right.
stretch some, and so, but there's still technically 24 different perfect time zones, right?
Okay, just listen. So we subtracted 3 right here. We subtracted 1 right here and 1 right here. So 5, which means in this northern portion, there's 19. Okay. Now, as we move on, right here, there is exactly 24 across this section. They are all lined up, and it's exactly 24. 8, 7, 6, 5. There's 24 right around the 40-degree latitude. Okay? In between these two areas. So now remember, on a flat Earth, to make it a globe, you're going to have to stretch the north, and then you're going to have to compress the south. There's going to be a middle area closer to the north where it's going to match the globe, right?
So I would say it matches everywhere, but
No, there's a flat Earth. There's an area that the flat Earth is going to match the globe, meaning you can have the 24
like on the equator or something.
Well, no, north of the equator.
Yeah, it's not necessarily at the equator, but it's like the proportion. It's almost it's like a band between the north and the North Pole and the equator. I mean, 40 is about halfway when you think about it of 90. So it's like that's the part where if you were to take that animation of that globe, like that's the part that would have the consistent latitude lines or longitude lines. I mean,
you see right here, it's going to be getting smaller. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Right around here, it's going to match the globe right here. It's going to match around 40 degrees latitude. That's where they're going to match.
Which is interesting because that's like half the radius roughly.
Okay, so we've taken 5 out of the north. Now this is just based on people arbitrarily choosing out of convenience and preference what time zones they want for political reasons.
Right, there's still 24 real time.
I just want you to.
They're only using 19 of them.
Yeah, I just want you to keep that in mind that that's your argument. Okay.
Right.
So we've taken out 5 in the northern portion, just like we would need to do if we were gonna make a flat Earth a globe. We would have to stretch the land out, just like we did here, where we started stretching out and stretching out. Just a coincidence that we did exactly what we have to do to make the flat Earth a globe. We stretched it out. Just a coincidence that right below that, at the very portion that would match the globe, we have exactly 24 time zones. And then when we get further south, we have 32 time zones. So we've actually added multiple time zones in the south, which is what we would have to do on a flat Earth, making it a globe, because they would get wider as they go further south. So we've now added time zones right where they would need to be added to make sure you can't tell the time zones are getting bigger on the flat Earth, right? So basically, are you claiming that coincidentally, with all these people making their own individual decisions, they all chose their time zones in such a way that just happened to land in such a way that it removed time zones from the top, which is what you would need to do to make the flat Earth a globe, It matched up perfectly in the middle, which is what a flat Earth would do if you're turning into a globe. And then they added time zones in the south, which is what you would do to turn the flat Earth into a globe. That just coincidentally, all these people in this section chose the perfect time zones to have 24. All the people north of that chose the time zones to where they removed the time zones needed to turn the flat Earth into a globe. And then all the people south of this just happened to choose way more time zones to turn the flat Earth into a globe. It's all just a coincidence.
So shoving time zones to the left and right due to political boundaries is understandable, but it doesn't mean that there aren't those time zones. It's just they don't use some of them in the north. And in the south, I don't know where you get 32 from, because if once you get past 24, it starts wrapping around. In the Wikipedia map that I looked at, seems pretty clear to have 24 all the way up and down.
No. So there are 32 in the south, and actually that's a minimum. It goes all the way up to 38. You can just look it up. So you
There's
see right here.
38 different time zones.
Yeah, I know your religion is really dumb. So if you look right here, you have 2.5 hours.
Okay, so how come time and date, or how come
Dude,
World
I'm just
Clock
showing you
doesn't show
the
38
time.
different
I'm
time
just
So,
showing you the time.
I was just going to say, this is from timeanddate.com, Matthew. It says currently 38 different local times in use.
Yep.
38, dude.
Okay, yeah. Some of them are half, some of them are a quarter, but they don't. They're different time zones because they split it up, but they don't span more than 24 different hours. Maybe
That's not
I
really.
showed on SunCalc in a few videos ago that it keeps skipping like your 0 UTC, 0 UTC, 0 UTC for like 2 extra time zones in the south, and then it jumps to -1, and then it goes back to 1, and then back to 0. It's like all over the freaking place, dude. You got to look into this.
So there are
by saying there's 38 time zones.
There are officially only 19 time zones in the very northernmost part of the globe, and at least 32 in the south. And there's exactly 24 in the middle, right around 40 south latitude. If you look right here towards it, they added most of the zones right in places where no one can actually access or have access to. So you have like southern Pacific Oceans. You have the middle of the ocean, where you have 2.5 and 3.5 all in the same longitudinal zone. You have over here, like with Australia, you have 20, 21 all in the same zone. And you have 20 over here, or 20.5, right? And then you have 21, which is in the 22. So in the south, they're adding multiple half time zones. All of a sudden, we're adding half time zones everywhere. And they're overlapping into all the other ones, which means that literally their actual like noon isn't even right. That doesn't even make sense. They're just doing it. They're just ignoring noon and adding half time zones, but only in
They're making it closer to noon.
No.
It used to be that we would have every city would have their own time zone, so we'd have 100 different time zones, so that we could get closer to noon.
You don't get it.
Yeah, he still doesn't get it, but it gets even worse.
Did you know that Boston and New York used to have different time zones?
This gets even worse for you though. So, will you see this right here? Do you understand? Do you not understand the concept yet? Right here, there's 4 time zones in America. That's because it's further north, which means on a flat Earth, they're smaller time zones because the longitude diverges out as it goes away from the center. So that's why we have 4 time zones in America. When you get far enough south, those same 2 time zones are going to be way wider because longitude diverges out. So they're way wider in the south.
Wait, so you're saying a time zone is wider in the south than the north?
Yes.
The same latitude, like Sydney and Los Angeles?
Do you agree it would be on a flat Earth?
On a flat Earth, yeah, but that's not what happens. The time zones at like 34 degrees north and 34 degrees south are exactly the same width.
They're not though, because say say we have 33 degree north in the United States, and we have 33 degrees south in Australia.
Yeah,
they're right around the same width. They're right around the same width, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. USA and Australia are about
why
the
do they
same.
not have the same amount of time zones though?
Because the political boundaries again. If you look at the Wikipedia map I posted.
But you just claimed that they were the same. So again, we're just going to come back to the final, and this is right here. You can look at it. What they did. You have the smaller ones in the north, so they subtracted some of them. And then you have exactly 24 as you get further out. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 24, right where it would be on a flat Earth. And then as you get to the south, they have 32 to 38. So 32 of them broken up into a bunch of half hours all of a sudden. Now, it seems like no one else, now the north and the south are, remember, they're symmetrical, but no one else wanted to use half hours. It's just when we got to the south, all of a sudden, we got half hours. So back to the main question here, right? This is exactly how you would hide a flat Earth with time zone. This is literally what you would do. So you have to, are you arguing it's just a coincidence that everyone arbitrarily chose, just coincidentally, the way that they would need to choose to hide a flat Earth, where they remove time zones at the top? It's exactly 24 where it would be on a flat Earth, and then it's extra time zones in the south where you would have to add time zones to hide the fact that they're wider.
Yeah, but
It's just a
splitting up time
coincidence.
zones doesn't mean there's more than 24 hours in the south. Is that what you're saying? That
Is
there's
it,
actually
you're just
32 hours?
basically begging the question, Matthew. You're not answering my question. Is it just a coincidence?
Yes.
Really? So you think it's
Right.
just a coincidence that there's 19 in the north and there's exactly 24 in the small portion that there would be 24 on the flat Earth, and then where it would match the globe at 24? And all these countries just so happened to randomly pick, and it just worked out that way. Not one of them chose not to do it. And then as we,
Yeah, I would say they chose them for political expediency according to their borders, and that there was not a conspiracy to hide the flat Earth.
Nothing to do with the
That is-
sun.
Okay, so Matthew, you're basically saying we should add it to the coincidence list.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the sun. So,
I don't think
so
I don't think a lot of these are added out in the ocean that's not habitable. So what countries, for political reasons, chose to break up different time zones into half hours outside of their longitudinal zones in the Southern Ocean where no one lives?
yeah,
So in the
Australia.
Southern Ocean, there's some islands, and that's why they make the international date line go, left and right. If you look at yeah, I don't know what you mean about which part of the globe is not, or which part of the map is not inhabited, and they just add a bunch of extra stuff.
Okay,
Wait,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, you're gonna invoke a little baby island here, I guess. The islands chose to hide the flat Earth with 2.5 hours here and 3.5 hours here within the same zone.
Yeah, it's only 1 hour difference from one side of Australia all the way to the other. And then, like Austin was saying, at the 33rd parallel in America, same width. It's 3 hours difference from one side to the other. So it's double. And if you look at the sections he keeps showing, that's exactly what you'd expect. And I think they're going more by the sun, not
Are you
by
talking
just.
about, so Australia has 3 time zones, and USA
Yeah, it's only a 1 hour
has
jump though. It's a half hour then an hour. It's a 1 hour jump from one side to the other, and it's a 3 hour jump in US.
Well, okay, it's actually 4 different hour zones in the US. You have 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay. Now these are the same width. They're right at the same width and they're right at the same latitudes, corresponding latitudes. Over here you have, what does it say? 9, 9.5, 10. So you have 8, 7, 6, 5, but then you have 9, 9.5, 10. Why would they not be exactly the same? They're the same width and the same latitudes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what if we said, okay, all you guys, you can't do this for political expediency, and we just erase all the time zones and do just straight up and down longitude
Then
lines?
It wouldn't
we'd
work.
have celestial navigation then, wouldn't we?
No, it wouldn't work,
Sure
Matthew.
it would, because the sun goes around in 24 hours everywhere on Earth.
Yeah, but this is what it would
Everything's
actually look like.
38 hours.
No, it wouldn't work for the globe though, because this is what it would look like. This is why this is the way it works. It's not a coincidence, dude. Okay, you
Yeah, so that one
have
line is
wider
the
time
band.
zones in the south right here, and you have smaller time zones in the north.
So you're saying that at the same latitude in the north, like 34 degrees where LA is, that the sun is directly overhead 500 miles to the east 1 hour earlier. But in Australia, It's
No.
not symmetrical.
No. Sunrise and sunset is not what we're talking about. We're talking about how you would change the time zones to hide the fact that the longitudes actually get wider in the south in reality. You would break up the time zones so no one can tell, right? The fact that we
Yeah, no, but I'm
we
talking
have a
time zones are
we have
based
a
on.
limited azimuthal grid of vision, so everyone's just going to have the same limit to their view when it comes to the sun. So that's not going
So
to help us either way.
Yeah, because it's just passing over. Like if that was the face of a clock and you have an hour hand, a minute hand, and imagine like the sun and the moon are moving like that, then it's still making that whole rotation once every day.
I guess I just want to really. I guess the whole debate's over right here. You think it's a coincidence?
of
All these
course, I mean, okay, right there, this one right here. See the light blue and dark blue bands? Those are the true time zones. That's
right.
all that matters. There's 24 on the top, 24 on the bottom. That's all.
Yeah, this is assuming a globe, and we put it on a map. They're parallel. Okay, that's what now that's what it should be. It'd be
That's what
really.
it could be if we just
I know
dictated.
that's what you believe, but if you just keep saying that, doesn't mean anything, dude. My point here is that you have to believe that it's just a coincidence that all these random countries making their own decisions for their own political biases or because one state spills over to the left or to the right, all these random decisions that people are making arbitrarily just so happen to line up in such a way that in the north they remove time zones, which is what would be needed to expand the land from a flat earth to a globe. Right where it would be the same, they all just arbitrarily decided to be right with the 24-hour zone. And then in the south, they all just arbitrarily chose to add time zones up to 32, where you would need to actually contract the land or to turn the flat earth into the globe. It's just a coincidence that all around the earth, everyone arbitrarily chose in the north to remove them, and the middle to keep them 24, and in the south to add them.
Right, because shoving a time zone to the left or right for political expediency, or adding a half an hour here or 3/4 of an hour to there, just to make it so the sun is at noon in your little country, adding those things doesn't change the fact that there's 24 actual time zones, the 24 different spots where the sun is at noon. At 24 different places.
You're not answering the question. You just keep basically asserting the globe position as if you know it's
Because
true.
it's true.
Dude, it's called a religion. So
No, it's called
can
rationality and logic.
this is
No,
the
Matthew, here's
logic, dude. I'm asking you, Matthew, point blank, I'm asking you, dude, what is different about the north, the middle, and the south that all
Nothing. They all have 24 time zones,
Dude,
except
listen.
that they shove them around a little bit.
I need you to really listen to the question, please.
I'm listening.
What is different about the north, the middle, and the south that made all these countries coincidentally and arbitrarily choose less time zones, exactly 24, and then more time zones? What is the common variable between the north and the middle and the south that caused them to all just happen to choose it the same way?
Nothing. There is no common variable.
It was just a coincidence.
Right.
Well, that also. So, okay, do you know, Matthew, that after the sun sets, like after that actual yellow circle of the sun is no longer visible, there's something called twilight, which is the amount of time, or sorry, the amount of daylight or the amount of light that remains, after the sun has set.
Yeah, which depends on the angle that the sun is setting.
Did you know that in the south, when it's their summer, so the sun's at the Tropic of Capricorn, when the sun sets, there's very little twilight. It's like, boom, it's dark quite very quickly. And this is measurable experience. You can put a clock on it.
Yeah.
And in the north,
same in the north.
when it's the north's summer and the sun is up on the over on the Tropic of Cancer, for the north's summer, there is a large amount of twilight. Sometimes hour and a half, 2 hours. There, you can get incredible extended twilights in the north, which does not happen in the south. If the Earth was a globe and those were the same, you would not expect there to be a difference. If the Earth is a plane that extends out from the center, the distances and the position of it would fit that, because if it's on the outer ring, as it were, the Tropic of Capricorn, it's really bending around the corner to the point to where, like, it's also making a faster ground speed. It's not a faster rotational speed, so you still have a 24-hour day, but it's making a faster ground speed. And so it makes sense. And people even in observing it and even with camera footage, it really does look like it's like moving off to the left. Like it actually has that direction to it. And the twilight is very minimal. Whereas in the north, when the sun's in the inner ring like that, because it's on the inner ring and it's making a tighter arc, the Arctic, it's making a tighter arc in the Arctic versus the anti-arc, which is the wider one. That's the opposite, the anti-arc, Antarctic versus the Arctic. So in the Arctic, it's the arc, and since it's making a tighter arc instead of the anti-arc, on the tighter arc, you're going to get a much larger amount of twilight because of that closer position, and you get much more of that light that exists after the sunset.
Okay, so you're saying that the time it takes twilight to get dark is not dependent on the latitude and season? Because I think that
dramatically at the same latitude and the same longitude, either north or south, it
exactly symmetrical.
Yes.
Do you agree then that if in the twilight is different in the north and the south, that would debunk the globe?
Of course.
Ooh.
It's already a thing, dude. This is it, right? I mean, it can be easily verified.
At Los Angeles and Sydney are about the same latitude and longitude, and they're exactly symmetrical in like twilight and sunsets and sunrises and all that type of stuff.
Those are different
South
things.
by 6 hours.
Dude, the time, dude,
6 months, I mean.
we're talking about the twilight. We're not
Twilight.
We're not talking about sunset and sunrise. Because
Okay, so the twilight is dependent on your latitude and the season, and they're exactly symmetrical in the north and the south.
So then you agree that if this guy's telling the truth, who sailed the 50th south latitude for 20 years, if he's telling the truth that when you're in the south, as soon as the sun begins to set, it sets much faster, and then boom, it vanishes into obscurity. But when you're in the north, there's a long like layover of twilight, and it's noticeably and drastically different. You admit that if what he's saying is true, it debunks the globe.
If
Hey,
it's the
wait,
same
real
latitude 6 months apart, then yes, that would be strong evidence.
Real
against
quick,
the
he
globe.
said Los Angeles lines up. So from one side of Australia all the way to the other, you're talking about almost 2,500 miles, which is about what one eighth of the way around. You've got a 1 hour change, in time, bro. In the north, it should be a one every hour should be a time zone basically. Every hour.
Sydney and Perth are 2 hours apart.
No, they ain't.
The phenomenon of the twilight is
There's 2 time zones, bro. They're 1 hour apart.
On what map are you looking? Australia.
There's
has
only
3
2 time zones in Australia,
Sydney
bro.
and Perth are 2 hours apart.
There's only 2 time zones, bro.
I just dropped a picture of another time zone distribution of Australia, by the way. So it's
How would it be?
eight,
Matthew,
1.5, and 10.
Matthew, it would not be very hard for you to validate that, right? To check the twilight time like that. I mean, that's within the grasp of anyone to do. We could even do it right now.
Okay, yes, we could.
People
Now,
live there.
let me just quickly say that Sydney, it's 4:39 p.m. and Perth is 2:39 p.m. So I count that as
So
2 hours.
there's more than 2 time zones then. Why is it showing 2 time zones on the time zone map?
It shows 3 on my time zone map.
Well, one is half an hour.
Right.
Yeah, the half hour doesn't count. That's just 2 total hours.
If
You're laughing.
Yes, because Sydney and Perth are 2 hours apart on every mine except yours. I don't know what you're
So that must mean the United States must have 8 different time zones then, right?
Oh, wait, hey,
We have
is 4 twice as much as 2, Matthew?
4 is twice as much as 2.
Okay, is the United States twice as wide as Australia?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Are there 3 time zones in Australia? Yes.
It's 8 3/4, so it's just over 2. It's not 3. It's 8 3/4. So it's 2 1/4. So no.
So Perth is at +8. Adelaide is at +9.5. And Sydney is
I just dropped it.
+10.
I just dropped it. It's no. It's at +8 3/4, and then it's +9 1/2, and then it's +10.
Yeah, so there's +8.
That's 3.
8.3, 8.75, 9.5, and 10. So there's 4 time zones in Australia.
Oh my God, dude.
Look
We're
at the
talking about
Wikipedia.
how many hours there are.
Yeah,
Look,
2
this
hours.
is so insane, dude. This is I don't know. I think there's like something metaphysical about it. But anyway, I'm going to show it one more time on my screen because this is mind blowing to me at this point. So again, in the United States, we have 4 different times. We have 4 in the United States, right?
Right.
Okay, so 4 hours.
3-hour difference. 12.
There's 4. Okay, is there 4 different hours?
Yes.
Okay.
12, 1, 2, and 3. So 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and 3 p.m.
Right. So that's 4.
4 hours with a 3-hour difference between New York and Los Angeles.
Okay. So there's 4 in the United States. And there's how many in Australia? Total hours.
3.
How is there 3 total hours?
Plus 8, plus 9, and plus 10.
It's not plus 8, it's 8 3/4.
Okay, well they shoved it up a little bit different, but there's different. I mean, there's still 2 hours apart.
Okay, so is 2 half of 4?
2 is half of 4, and 2 is 66.6% of 3.
These time zones are about as hacked up as the Zapruder film was.
It's so obvious too, dude. Like I will say this.
Cutting with scissors and putting different stuff on film. Like what this
If anyone can get past the obvious part, then like there's nothing to do here, right?
Let me just
1,
ask
2,
this.
3, 4. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 1, 2. When you actually map it out on the parallel times, like the longitudinal zones, you have 20th hour, 20 and a half hour, 21 hour. And actually Australia, the 21 hour spills over into the 22. Okay. Then this is when you actually map it on the parallel times that would be based on longitude that's symmetrical on a globe. You have 24, you get 20, 20 and a half, 21. So you have 1, that's 20, and you have 2, that's 21. When you actually map it properly. When you then come over here and do the same thing for the United States, you have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so let me ask you this. It's noon in Sydney. How
That
long
is
do the people in Perth have to wait until it's noon in Perth?
This is so on point. This is like a litmus test if you can see truth or not right here.
I know, dude. It's like
no, I agree.
It's almost perfect. 'Cause it's not like
experiencing.
it's not irrefutable where you just have to say nuh-uh. It's where you just like can't see it.
Yeah, simple question. Noon at Sydney. How long will it be before people in Perth experience noon?
It'll be the same as the United States.
I'm asking a number.
It'll be the same. The same as the United States. Because I've already answered this question. I already
You don't
told.
think it's going to be 2 hours?
Didn't I already tell you that sunrise and sunset doesn't help you?
That's what the time zones are for, to split up when you experience.
Wait, I thought you just said it wasn't about that at all.
That's what the real time zones are. These political maps are different.
But now you want to go back to the political maps.
No. So it's noon
my
in
whole
Sydney.
point.
If we
What
do
time
2
is it
time
Perth?
zones in
He doesn't
2,500 miles, then that means at Sydney's latitude that it should be 12 times 2,500. So it should be about what 32,000 miles around right there.
Well, I don't know where that came from, but so
Or about a little under 30,000 miles there. That's bigger than the equator, bro.
Yeah, Sydney and Perth. How far apart are they? And like, how far apart are their times?
Like I said, aren't they in Australia like 2,500 miles wide?
Yeah.
So if there's only 2 time zones, if they're only 2 hours apart, then that means for the other time zones, if it's roughly 2,500 miles across, then multiply that times 12, 2,500 times 12 to give you your full distance around. And that would be that'd be over 30,000. That'd be bigger than the equator. That would point towards a bigger southern hemisphere. Any way you look at it.
Okay. In Sydney, it is 4:46 p.m. right now. What time do you think it is in Perth? 4:46 in Sydney. The other end of Australia, what time is it? I'll tell you, it's 2:46.
Okay. So, wait,
Three
do you not
times
understand the
different.
argument still?
3 different time zones.
Matthew, they subtracted 5 time zones from the north by stretching out the time zones over the land, which is exactly what you would need to do to make a flat Earth a globe. You would have to stretch the north right at 4 degrees latitude, where you wouldn't have to stretch it at all. That's the one place in the world that we have exactly 24 hours across the board. Then when we get south, they have 32 time zones that they added to the 24, which on a flat Earth, it would be wider. So they then added more time zones. You think that it's just some cosmic coincidence that the whole world arbitrarily and politically selected their time zones in such a way that they all cooperated inadvertently in the north to subtract them, in the middle to keep them exactly 24, and in the south to add them.
But by saying that there are 32 time zones in the south, it sounds like you're implying that there are 32 separate hours. And there just are not. There cannot be. There can only be 24 hours because the sun returns to the same spot.
That ain't got nothing to do with it, dude.
No, dude, it's not.
Like I
It's
said.
not about the hours of the sun. It's about the land and the way the land is actually plotted amongst the tracking of the sun. That's the whole point. The sun is the regular period part of the equation, and then that's just like the slices of the pie, if you will.
Yeah, so what if we sliced up the pie in the northern hemisphere instead of having 19 time zones? We split them up, each of those time zones 10, and had 190 time zones.
Right, but it's about comparing it. But it's about comparing it to the amount of land that's available and how they're actually the sizes of them. It's not just how many you break it up into. There's discrepancies in terms of the way that the land masses are lining up with the coordinate system. Like there's a fault in the system.
Well, okay, so if that's true, then you're basically saying that you don't trust the map, and that's
Well, there's that, of course, there's that. But the thing is, the map is not authentic. It already has all of these flaws and issues, and even they admit, like even the Mercator map, they admit it's not the real one. Like, so a lot of these they even admit, those kinds of things as well.
There's
but
a whole gamut of things too. I just made a video with 10 of them, and the race, the Southern race, 24-hour world record over 30 years and hundreds of freaking days. It's like a 200-mile difference from the north and the south. And then you look at the Analema, the southern loop. I'm not talking about the length of it. I'm talking about the width of it is over twice as wide. Then you look at the no undersea cables between the continents. You look at the freaking dude. It goes on and on. You look at the hours logged by some of the old captains and Cook and the Challenger and a couple other ones. I mean, everything about it, everything you would expect, and then all the way down to the roads being dead straight, and all the major highways in the southern hemisphere. The further south you go, the straighter the roads are. The further north you go, they're windy with hardly any exceptions. I couldn't find even one exception. It's
no, I've
just
heard
like
you say that, which is interesting. I guess that would have to be looked into more. But that is.
Do you think that has to do with the topology? Like if you have flat deserts?
Dude, you're a coincidence theorist, Matthew.
I think they build roads in deserts straight, and then they build roads in mountains curvy.
What else would we expect?
We'd everything on. First of all, why would there not be symmetrical weather anyway? Like, you think that everything is just a coincidence, bro. I can't even fathom thinking that the time zones being 19, 24, then 32, exactly as would be needed to hide the flat Earth by transposing a globe, is just a coincidence. Like, I can't even fathom that.
For what it's worth, I had what you're showing right now on your screen. I just screenshotted it, converted it to AE, and put it in chat.
Nice. There you go. That's perfect. You see it. You see what they did.
Bacon's the man. He's my favorite glober.
Dude, look what they did.
Too, please.
They did, dude. It's smaller in the north, so they made it work to get a globe. It's so obvious, dude. It's so brilliant too, because when you combine the trick of magnetic declination in the south with this trick, dude, even people selling in the south, they're never going to be able to figure it out. They're just following magnetic declination charts.
Can you
Yep.
stream that on your screen, please?
Yeah.
I had to dive in pretty deep to find out that the magnetic declination in the southern hemisphere doesn't correct toward magnetic north. It's random, and there's like 6 poles down there, literally 6 minor poles. No major poles, just a bunch of minor poles. And I had to literally get in a debate with Ruhif and study, and I finally lined up Sydney and found out that if they were correcting the magnetic north, they wouldn't be deviating at all in Sydney, because it is exactly lines up with magnetic north. And that's how I found out that they just they declinate the shit all over the place. There's no way to verify it without using the heavens, and the heavens is what you use to make your damn map. So anybody could make a model if you're just gonna declinate what you need wherever you fucking need it in the southern hemisphere.
Earlier, you were talking about the Twilight. I think that's an interesting thing to look at. And basically, you'd need to look at a certain point on the Earth and then look at the symmetrical version in the southern hemisphere of the same latitude and see if you get the same twilight time and sun. You could look at the time and date thing to see what angle the sun sets at.
I watched the sunrise live at Sydney for Mitchell from Australia, and it came up quick, dude, way quicker than it did when I set my strings for the equinox.
Yeah. Well, this was saying he's saying you need to get close to the 50th south latitude. So, like, basically, what if we just used a solar filter? No, that's no good. That's no good. So, if we set up the same exact cameras at the same exact corresponding latitudes, right, 50 degrees north and south, and we videotaped the sunset, and then the south is different, and it gets darker way faster, you agree that would debunk the globe?
To be clear, exactly 6 months later. It's symmetrical 6 months later in the south.
Yeah. It would at the I mean
Yes,
same time.
that would be a strong evidence against the globe if you do that.
Yeah.
The peak of the solstices.
Well, you could do
Yeah,
anything.
but opposite though, opposite solstice. So we'd want to do the north during the southern solstice and the south during the northern solstice. That's where it'd be the most obvious.
That's what he was
But you could do any day of the year.
He said in the solstice, it's so obvious that when you're in the south, that the sun that it just turns to obscure like obscurity is how he phrased it. Obscurity super fast. And this dude's been sailing in the southern oceans for many years.
Yeah, so this effect is most pronounced in the time of year. Yeah, like in the south, when it's the southern summer, at the peak of that summer, right at that solstice where the sun is right at the Tropic of Capricorn, pausing right there ideally, or just in that area. Then in the north, when it's at the Tropic of Cancer, when it's on the inner ring. And the way that, like, I would say there's 2 different kinds of light. We have the light, let's say, from the sun, like that yellow circle, as it were. And then there's the blue or the skylight, like the blue daylight, as it were. I think that's like indirect lighting. Now, even from a globe model, it could still be the case. You could say that's the atmosphere and the gravity, and it's kind of like doing this indirect lighting activation with the gases.
Yeah, Rayleigh scattering, yep.
Yeah. So you can still describe it on a globe, but over a planar surface, it's even more, I think, like incredible in terms of the layout of it.
Yeah, but it's just so bad if it's different. Everything needs to be symmetrical. That's actually the death blow to the globe in every way. The magnetic field's not symmetrical. The shipping route's not symmetrical. The underground sea cables from continent to continent, it's not symmetrical. The navigation times are not symmetrical. The plant and animal life is not symmetrical. The weather patterns is not symmetrical. The twilight is not symmetrical. The time zones is
Hardly any of the equinoxes line up due east in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, and we're adding time zones to the list. Wow, that's the
So
potent.
I would say that obviously the north and the south aren't symmetrical with the continents and the oceans, and that would affect shipping times and ocean currents and
that affects
undersea cables.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the boat races, bro. The world record 24 hours. You think over 30 years with races lasting 100 damn days each and with hundreds of contestants, you'd think they'd get one day in the south that would match the the top 20 record conditions in the north, and yet there's 200-mile difference in 24 hours, a 200-mile difference. Plus, dude, hardly any places in the southern hemisphere line up with a due east equatorial sunrise.
And this is
Hardly anywhere.
Right, not this. I feel like there's a scattergunning going on. There's a lot of different topics there. I mean,
real fast. I was like, what he just said is very profound. If you think about it, because this is with Sailor's firsthand testimony that it's like optimal conditions.
Yeah, depending on
Right.
ocean currents and winds.
Optimal conditions.
But I'm saying they're going to be different according to the topology of the continents.
what's going to be different? What topic is this now?
Ocean currents
Boats,
and winds.
boats moving, like whenever the people in the South sail, they're like, this was a perfectly sunny day. We didn't really have to fight wind. It was optimal conditions, and their maximum speeds they attain are way lower than in the north. And of course, they're getting their speeds, quote unquote, based on how far they assume they traveled. So, like, if you think you're going a short distance, right, but you're actually traveling much further on a flat Earth, then you're going to think you're going slower than you actually are.
Right, and you'd think if you're circling the entire globe, you'd find at least one day in them 100 days over 30 years, one boat even, to match any of the top 20 records for the North 24 hours. I mean, it's just
It's so obvious, dude. I think this is one of those things, man. It's just like it's eyes to see type of thing.
Well, so the weather and the ocean currents don't affect the sun. That's why I think that if you want to make this argument, then the thing about the twilight times and the angle of the sun going down, that would be your best argument.
Okay, well, again, like the whole sunset and like the sunset times and where you see it, maybe the angle changes, but since it's in your limited field of view, it's not really going to be very noticeable. To do the angle, you'd have to have super precise measurements and solar filters because you're within your personal grid of vision to even have a chance. But the actual like twilight time is very damning to the globe. Like there's actually no way it can be explained away.
I've never seen a single twilight time that debunks the globe. What are you talking about?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying like if that's true, if the person is telling the truth about how consistently when he sells 50 south latitude, and he said that it's best near the solstice when you see the sun so clear.
Well,
Boom.
feel free to gather that evidence and present it.
Yeah, he said in the north. He said in the north, it's like you have twilight for a long time. He's like in the south, and like comparatively, it's like boom, obscurity, like way faster.
So he's talking about
We should
50 north and then 50 south.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take it on my
3
show.
months
He
apart,
doesn't speak English.
6 months apart.
He does speak English, but not well.
We just need like a time lapse of a sunrise and sunset in the way south, and then side by side with the north. Globe debunked.
I mean, you could look at Sydney versus Los Angeles on.
Dude, guys, you remember when
Can
I
I find those videos already on YouTube, like of sunset and sun, whatever? We can just find YouTube videos, people living there, right?
has to be far enough south.
I can check it real fast.
You need the times to correspond within 6 months of each other, like 6 months inverse, and then you need the latitudes to be corresponding. But you know what's super funny? It's like you remember when I made the joke about northern hemispheric refraction?
Yeah.
They're gonna end up saying it.
Dude, they're gonna quote it now. They're gonna invent it and then recite it and then regurgitate it to us
They're gonna
as if they made it up. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna go hit up
Good answer.
It was, to be fair, it was a great on the spot answer. Dude, you're a better globe apologist than any of them.
Yeah.
Northern refraction. Oh.
I unmuted just so you guys could hear me eating popcorn. I hope you heard
Great.
me eating popcorn because I was cooking it right when we got
Is
this guy on the stage.
Is it
I
the
was happy.
is it the dark northern lights that makes it refract around the
Yeah.
the
Yes. It's the dark
light.
Oh yeah,
It's-
the dark light.
dark light?
light. The dark light with
That's what it is.
the dark matter and the dark energy. It's the dark globalist overlord.
The dark glow.
Good answer.
The dark glow that just extends the sun in the north just miraculously.
They actually come together as like a super saying of refraction. There's really no way around it. It's just
No, the math, yeah, kind of the last part I was going to say about that. I'm glad it kind of came back up because I think, yeah, the last thing I was going to say is that's the thing, man. Like, so like I was saying before, if you have the sunlight, like the circle of the sun, and then there's the blue or the daylight, like the sky that seems to emit its light, like indirect lighting, the blue from the sky. So when the sun sets, the sky sometimes can still be blue, it can still be different colors, and that you still get all that indirect lighting. And there's even still some light coming from where the sun is too. So the thing is, in the north, that's way more pronounced, like we were discussing at those solstice times. And it lasts for much longer. And you can literally just time it with a clock, with a watch. I mean, there's an actual time, and use meters to measure the luminosity. Whereas in the south, now it does depend on what your horizon point is. Like if you have like a mountain that the sun's going behind, like you should be on like level land, so you can get like a deal over the water where you can get like a full sunset. And it's not something that's behind a mountain. Nonetheless, yeah, in the south, that the fact that dissipates, where that blue light and all the light, the twilight, is so much shorter. If you were able to see that validated yourself, which anyone could do just by flying to those places, or if you just know people in those places that can do it for you. If you saw that, what would that actually do for your globe belief currently? Because that is something that's actually quite easy to do. It's not beyond the realms. Like that's one of the most closely accessible things. So what would that actually, how would that change your perspective on the globe Earth?
I think there's a lot of crickets going on.
He may not be at his mic.
so bad for them though. It's just like it's so brutal. It's like you can go look at the time zones. It's 2 hours. Go look at it late on 24 hour time zones. 2 hours for Australia. Hey, if you have 303 and 503, how many hours is that? I think that's 2 hours. Yeah. That's 2 hours. Yeah. I was just thinking about it. That's 2 hours. So okay, yeah. So 2 hours, and then you got 4. So 2 and 4.
That's an easy equation, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 and 4, but the width's the same, and they have the corresponding latitudes.
Yeah, you smashed their globe into a million pieces just in the last, I don't think it took you 4 weeks, man. I think you smashed it. Smashed them really hard.
Yeah,
I'm eating popcorn, man. I don't eat popcorn unless I'm just real happy. I just start making me popcorn. I'm watching a movie, man. I think we made a good movie.
I posted what the sun does in Los Angeles versus Sydney 6 months apart, if anybody's interested.
That's okay. That's just showing the sunrise and sunset times. It's not showing twilight.
Showing the angle is the important thing. They're symmetrical angles. An angle determines the twilight time.
Well, look at the one on the left. Look how it's cut off, and it's much smaller. And the one on the right is much larger and more expansive. This actually shows exactly what we're saying, bro. Like exactly.
No, so in Sydney it rises at 114.
Yeah, look at how small. Look at how small. I mean, is this cut off? Like, is this image cut off? It looks like on the right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's more under the line is what I'm saying. There's more under.
Plus, it's off
I heard what you're saying.
by 11 degrees, bro, from magnetic north. Sydney lines up perfect with magnetic north, and it's off by 11 degrees from what they tell you on SunCalc and time and date.
Yeah, but I'm saying the angle of the sunrise and the angle of the sunset are symmetrical.
Hey, how many hours is 11 to 3?
I mean, this is like one of the easiest things to prove.
3.666667.
I'm pretty sure 11 to 3 is 4. And then what is 3 to 5? Oh, it's 2. So it's half. But it's the same with corresponding latitude. They hit the flat Earth with time zones and magnetic declination.
Yep.
Yeah, but Alaska is farther west than the continental U.S.
Done and done.
So it's 3 hours difference between LA and New York, and it's 2 hours difference between Sydney and Perth.
Why?
Just to let you know, Matthew, I think when you do finally give up on the globe, I think it's going to be a breakthrough time in your life. So you have nothing but goodness to look forward to.
Likewise, I think that you guys will eventually see the truth of the globe and come back. So I would say the same thing.
Are we? Wait. Okay. So do you think we're gonna go through transformations where we wake up to the globe? Is that what you're saying?
I'd say a few of you, like Geo, Witsit, a handful of you guys are smart enough to eventually come back. I would say, but not everybody.
I mean, I went to grad school, and one of the main focuses was the entire heliocentric model and cosmology and Copernicanism and the whole history and lineage of the whole thing.
Yeah. So I think you have the capability to come back. I'm not sure about people like Alan, because of the videos he's made.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Did you-
destroying your entire worldview would give you that connotation in me.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
after that
Yeah.
relativity.
Yeah,
doesn't
I
do-
would never go back to your
Hey, Ted,
worldview
hey,
after I
Ted.
fucking destroyed it by reading about it for like a month and then, just realizing it's all made up.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew,
They didn't read about it. That's how they know it's real.
do you really think like
Roger, you didn't mention me. Do you think I'm going back to the globe?
Yeah, like-
Dog.
do you really think we're all going to be like the next Ranty, like one at a time, like just following in the Sean G Ranty and maybe one or two others? Like we're all going to start popping like flies back to the globe.
Hold on, what's it? Can you show that time zone discrepancy again, where there's like 19 in the north and 38 in the fucking south, real quick?
Yeah.
So Geo,
Let me
to
see
answer
if
your
I'm
question-
gonna hold on a second, please. Just gonna take a look at this real quick. See if I'm gonna go back to the globe. Yeah, I want to see if I want to go back to this belief system real quick. Give me one sec. See if I'm smart enough.
Matthew, I'm headed right back.
Let's see, 19, and then so if it's a globe symmetrically, there should be 23 to
24.
24. So there's way too fucking many. I'm not going back to that. Sorry.
Yeah, so I would say
Thanks for trying, dog.
Typically, people
You get
leave
real
from-
condescending when the globe like is proven false, dog. I've noticed that. When I was talking about it the other night, you got super salty. Now you're gonna tell me I'm not smart enough to come back to this fucking dog shit, bro.
I think probably not, unfortunately.
You're too fucking stupid to leave it, bro. Actually,
No.
sorry for getting upset with you. You're
So
a good
it
guy,
actually-
dog. I
It actually
apologize.
takes people to leave the community that they're part of first. So you'd have to like give up your Discord friends and give up the flat Earth community first before you change your mind about the facts of the matter. That's typically how people leave.
Well, you know what's funny though is we're the ones that actually did change our mind. You've yet to even be able to do that. So
Right.
We had no choice in the matter.
So I think you're capable of changing your minds back, is what I'm saying.
Matthew, do you think I know more about the heliocentric model than you do?
Probably so.
Do you think I know more about relativity than you do?
Definitely. I don't know much.
You think I know more about Newtonian mechanics than you do?
No.
Do you think I know more? Wow, you're wrong.
Well, I mean, didn't you say that that rockets couldn't work in a vacuum of space?
Yeah. I know I can say your answer more articulate than you can, and we've actually had that exact same thought experiment. Hey, do you think I know more about like the core of the Earth model than you do?
No.
Really?
What about the magnetic field model of the Earth?
Yes.
What about the atmosphere of the Earth?
Yes.
What about the layers of the Earth?
Probably so.
What about the tilt, wobble, and spin?
I think I know probably about as much as you do.
You think you can shuck and jive with the wobble?
Yeah. Yeah.
The wobblation. So like so you think I know more about the model than you do, but
Matthew, when is the Earth ovulating the most?
Just confused.
Well, you know what's interesting? We're talking about like people dropping like flies. Here's what's interesting. So the globe thing was all like impregnated with all the indoctrination, right? All of our lives were just brought up with it. And then obviously, like pretty much since around 2015, I think it might have been the December 21st, 2012. I do think that was actually the shift point. And then it just took like a year later until everything really started shifting. That's like a cyclical shifting point. You know, and well, what I was saying, so yeah, so we all are under the globe thing. And then what has been dropping like flies are globe earthers, meaning it's been like one after another, just people, you know, the whole flat earth coming to the earth being stationary, flat, planar, etc. You know, look, and just reconnecting with the cosmology that was the complete default since the dawn of time, other than this globe aberration thing. So what's dropping like flies are globe earthers. However, you know, if you want to use the term flat earther, there aren't flat earthers dropping like flies at all. There's, of course, the very few people, and we all know them. We could count them on one hand, basically. So now there are some people that might be on the fence for a while. That's fair. But people that come to the conclusion that it is stationary and planar are not going back to the globe, you know, and any numbers whatsoever. So one side is losing massive numbers and the other side is not losing any. It's only collecting more.
I think there are more globe earthers this year than last year.
Okay,
Well,
just
yeah,
like
because of babies or whatever.
Yeah, the population grows faster than the number of people converting to flat earthers. So
Yeah, but the
the number
generation.
of globers is always increasing.
Gio, you want to notice? He thinks that it takes 10 years, and that once because I'm like, oh yeah, so we have like 99.9% retention for the first 7 years, but you think all of a sudden we're all going to start changing? He said, yeah, I think it'll take about 10 years, and
Yeah,
then
that's about right.
yeah, that's his.
Because there are hardly any flat earthers who have believed it for more than 10 years.
Hey, what's it? I want to read you this. It's Amos 8, 11, and 12. The days are coming, declares the sovereign, well, yeah, when he will send a famine through the land, not of bread, not of water, but you can't hear the word.
You're breaking up.
I'll bet. Just read Amos 8, 11, and 12. Now's the time to read it, Witsit. Read that one. What's it say? Amos 8, 11, and 12.
All the days come, saith the Lord, saith Yah, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of Yah. That's crazy. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run and to and fro to seek the word of Yah, and shall not find it. Yeah, that's pretty relevant. Just in general, right? Because the word of
you can't convince everybody, but
yeah.
Matthew, if you're trying to say that no one's gone longer than 10 years, just because if you're talking about 2015, the fact that we're in this current time, that's really not valid in the sense that, as far as we know, in all human consciousness, the earth has always been known to be stationary and planar, with the heavens above, the dome, the sky, the firmament, all the different conceptions of that. So that's been the foundation forever. And then there's this globe thing, which they claim, is what it is. So when you're saying no one's gone 10 years, dude, 99% of all humans that have ever lived have lived their entire lives having the earth be stationary and planar. Their whole lives. Like the majority percent of all humans that have ever lived were not globe earthers. Like if it was even a percent, I'd be shocked. It's got to be a fraction of a fraction of a percent. Even if you add up this whole last 150, even if you add up the last 2,000 years, doesn't even matter how much you add up.
So you're saying 99.99% of people are flat earthers?
Who have ever lived in the
For all
history?
time, yeah. Yo, I'm headed to bed. Sorry about earlier, Matt. No hard feelings, man.
Oh, no, it's okay.
All right, peace, brother.
You too.